Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good golly, Miss Molly. Welcome to That 70s Rock Fan. I am extremely humbled today to be joined by the author of what has become one of my favorite books of many a year. Uh, David J. Moore, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Good to see you, sir. The book in question, see, I'm Scottish. I have to say the word book like that. is, of course, this magnificent compendium, World Gone Wild, a survivor's guide to post-apocalyptic movies. This is the Restocked and Reloaded second edition. This is a mighty tome, David. There's a lot of stuff in here.
Yeah.
I will be, for those who are watching this, there are links in the description below for where you can find this wonderful book. This is it's published by Schiffer Books. You can buy it directly from them if you choose. You can also find it obviously on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Chapters Indigo, many other places. So we'll make sure we put lots of links in there to that. David, this, let me hide that in stream. There you go. Self-produced, so there's always that's good. Pulling things up and down. This is, as I say, it's just such a fabulous book. But I have a complaint. Time obviously is short, and I'm getting older, and you've just given me hundreds of more hours of movie watching to do. Because every time I open this book, I find something new that I've never seen before.
I understand. Believe me, that's why I always tell my friends, it makes a good bathroom book. Just put a bookmark in it, and keep a pencil handy, and it's good for just a reference guide. I grew up in the era of the like the Roger Ebert books and the Leonard Maltin books, and there were like the Blockbuster video guide, and my dad gave me the Hollowell's movie review guide. It was this big hardcover book when I was
I remember those.
Yeah, those were a little dense. His opinions were always a little stringent towards anything. You were lucky to get a star for anything. But as a kid, I pored over those books, and I would always take notes. I always had a running list. I'm like Mr. List, back then, and I just lived by lists, and so that's the fun of discovery, is making lists and checking off your list, and when you I remember the baseball cards, like you buy a pack of Superman 2 cards or whatever, and there was, you were lucky to get the checklist. And I love the checklist cards. It's like, oh, I need that one. Oh, I need that one.
Yeah, I'm the same.
So I love lists, and so I wrote this book, for the list keeper. All the list keepers out there, and I of course I don't expect anyone to watch all these movies. I watch them so you don't have to.
Yes, and some of them, and one of the things I love about it is there's like 1,200 movies in here, and you've reviewed them all, you and your team.
Yeah.
And you have handily categorized them with reviews of, well, this one's, there's 5 levels, I think, isn't there? Of
the rating system.
Yeah.
Look, so I didn't want to do stars. Everybody does stars or whatever. And I felt like I had to create a system. And look, the first edition was written years and years ago. Yeah, there you go. And a friend of mine who designs pins for like Disney and stuff, he created those for me.
Yeah.
And I should mention his name. His name's Charles Garcia.
Yeah, the icons and the
yeah. And he's actually designing some icons for me right now for another book that I'm working on. So yeah, I had to have a rating system that was kind of easy to understand, and uh, but also there's a subgenre list in the back of the book that's huge.
I
Um,
just love it. Yeah.
it took me years to kind of get that down. Like what are all the common denominators for all of these movies? Uh, so many subgenres in the post-apocalyptic realm. Just dozens upon dozens upon dozens. Cryogenic freezing and bomb shelters and
Domestic apocalypse.
yeah,
The big death.
or the apocalypse. If the movie takes
Cyborgs.
cyborg. I just there's so many, and I think I might have added one or took away one or two. For the second edition, I had some stuff that I took out just for space. That wasn't really, it didn't really add anything or whatever. Um, So yeah, I mean that was the fun, and then writing a description of each one of those subgenre lists.
Yeah, I noticed that you have a complete subgenre just for Planet of the Apes on its own.
Right, it's not just Planet of the Apes. It's there's other movies that have kind of ripped it off. And
Mm,
like Time of the Apes and Commandi, the last boy or whatever it's called.
yeah, I saw that in there. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, the good one. Like you got to put some stuff in there, fill up the categories, and that was the fun of it.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about lists. This is probably what appealed to me. This book immediately because I'm a bit of a list maker, a bit of what they used to call a train spotter, a trivia hound. I love all that stuff. It's a trademark of my shows that I do. I love the trivia and the connections.
Yeah.
So immediately I picked it up. I was like, wow, this is great. I can look down this category and go, oh, look there. And you'll see movies in multiple categories. So I'm looking to find out, well, I think it should be in there. Let's see if it's in there, But 12,000 movies.
1,200.
Sorry, 1,200 movies. Sorry, beg your pardon, miss. 1,200 movies.
Maybe a little bit more.
Maybe
Yeah.
a little bit more. You've got major categories which you described in the introduction. Things like Road Warrior type movies. All those great subcategories, dozens of interviews with creators.
Yeah.
You've got the reviews themselves, the rating system, and I think you've got something like over 600 images. Is that right?
Oh, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. Many of which are from your personal collection.
Yeah. Yeah. So between the first and the second edition, I probably sold off quite a bit. I had written another book as well, called The Good, the Tough, and the Deadly Action Movies and Stars, which is my super deep dive into what I would consider action stars. And so my grandfather passed away some years back, at least, I don't know, 10, 12, I don't know, 15 years ago, a while ago. And he left me quite a bit of money. And I was able to fund these books, and I would say each one of these cost at least $10,000, at least, like
Okay.
maybe more, just to collect. Like back then I didn't understand how like a book like this would work visually.
Mm.
I wasn't sure, for like when I was writing World Gone Wild way back, almost 20 years ago.
So that was the beginning of it 20 years ago.
Yeah, almost. I didn't know, like, do I buy posters? Do I buy, do I have to go to the studios? I wasn't sure how to do it. And so I just literally started, and I already had a huge collection of stuff because I grew up in Hollywood, and back when I was a kid, there were movie poster shops all over the place. And I remember, going into these shops, and they'd have these giant folders of lobby cards. And I grew up in the era of lobby cards. I would go to the movies, and outside, next to the poster, they'd have like 8 beautiful lobby cards.
I remember those. Yeah.
Gorgeous. either 8 by 11 or, you know, like 11 by 14 size cardboard images from the film. And I remember you could buy those
Yeah.
right in the these movie poster shops and collector shops. And so I already had a pretty nice collection of stuff that I was just saving for who knows what, you know, like maybe when I'm older, I'll put these on the
Mhm.
wall, you know, and my dad's like, yeah, whatever, you know.
Mm.
And so, but when I was able to really invest in these projects, I spent just a ton of money on buying stuff from all over the world. I would go to eBay. You know, there's different places that you can buy them, at least
Yeah.
back then. And you know, I bought tons of posters, beautiful stuff from all over the world. I have a lot of stuff hanging around my house. Um, and so yeah, I you know, and then I had to scan all that stuff in. You know,
Yeah, that's it. And for posters,
yeah, you know,
that's not easy. Yeah.
I had to find places that were able to scan commercial size, you know, like posters, and that cost just a ton of money too.
Oh,
So
I can imagine.
luckily I did most of that stuff already, you know, and I never really stopped collecting images. I just kind of, if I see something and if I have got the money, I'll pick it up. Because you never know when you're going to need it. You know, like
Yeah.
I'm working on a sword and sorcery book. I'm working on a
Oh,
book
nice.
about erotic thrillers. I'm working on a book about coming of age movies from like the 70s all the way to the
Mm.
present. So, you know, I just have an enormous uh, archive
You
now.
must have an enormous archive of actual physical media too, so
Uh,
copies of movies.
you know, if I just turn the phone around, you kind of, you know, just,
Oh,
you
nice.
know,
No,
like I,
I
I don't
like
show
it.
my stuff off ever. I don't like showing my stuff off, but I have more than any human being would ever need.
That's I'm already excited when I see that.
Yeah.
It's, I love it. I myself used to have an enormous collection of that stuff, and then I got rid of a lot of things, which I bitterly regret now. So I'm trying to build it up back up again. Physical media needs to be kept and preserved, I believe.
Yeah.
Whether it be right back to VHS and onwards, I've got a lot of VHS. Um, so beautiful collection you have. The books. I just before we talk about a few other things, I wanted you mentioned the icons, but also the artwork
Yeah.
on the book. Could you tell us a little bit about that and the
Sure.
artist?
So the first
Beautiful.
edition was kind of, you know, I was pleased with the cover of the first edition.
Yeah,
It was kind of designed by the art team. Yeah, there you go.
yeah.
The art team at Schiffer. You know, I gave them lots of suggestions. We had a sort of a direct to video, you know, look to it before that. There were like, you know, Mila Jovovich and Denzel Washington from the Book of Eli, you know, and it had
Mm,
like really cheapo look to it that I didn't like. I was like, nah, it doesn't look right. And so we just went with the title, you know, with that
mm.
Mad Max Chrome look. And you know, it served its purpose. I was happy with it. But for the second edition, which was published 10 years later, um, I wanted a really dynamic, like a movie poster look. And so I had to find the right guy. And I did a lot of looking around. I don't know. Are you familiar with Wasteland Weekend? Do you know what that is?
I've heard the name, but I can't say I'm familiar. No.
Wasteland Weekend's been going on for a long time. It's sort of a lifestyle. It pushes cosplay into another level.
No. Okay.
It's a lifestyle event that happens once a year, out in the desert in California somewhere. Uh, and these crazy guys, you know, these really hardcore end of the world aficionados come out in their regalia, you know, their
Mm.
end of the world outfits. They have their souped up cars
There's paraphernalia. Yeah.
and trucks, and it's a transformative outdoor experience that happens over the course of a weekend where, you know, these wild and crazy. You know, they have races, they have crazy concerts, and it's really, you're out there in the rough. You know, dressed up,
Mm.
Max and the Road Warrior characters. You know, and anything goes. You know, like they have a barter town, uh,
Wow.
a full scale thing. Like it's a massive thing, and so every year there's a poster, like a flyer that goes out, and it's designed really nicely. And I like the artwork, and so I know some guys that do Wasteland Weekend every year, and so I got connected to this artist. His name's Terry Wolfinger.
Wolfinger. Okay.
Wolfinger, and he does really great artwork, and he's done the posters for these flyers for Wasteland Weekend. Anyway, I got connected to him, and he was incredibly easy to work with. Every detail you see on there was by my suggestion.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, every detail on there, I asked him to do that. The girl on there, that's a model. Her name is Christian Petra. Yeah, she is the star of a movie called Bounty Killer that was put out at least 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. And she was great to work with. She sent us a bunch of, she gave us her permission, and she sent us a bunch of sexy
So
poses.
reference poses. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that, check him
It's
out. Terry, he's out there.
it's a great cover. It wouldn't be ironic if the apocalypse actually happened while Wasteland Weekend was on?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
They'd be ready to go.
That's a great idea. I love it.
That's right. They'd be the best prepared, ready to roll. I'd heard the name. I didn't realize it was quite so extensive or quite
It's
this big a thing.
intense. You know, I was invited when the first book came out, the first edition, and they were like, "Oh, you should come down and sell your book." But the condition was, so you can't come in like regular outfit.
No,
They
you
don't,
got
and you have to, everything has to be themed. So
mm,
I was trying to figure out how to be a merchant in their barter
okay.
town without, like, you know, I wear glasses, you know, like
Mm.
there's no way I'm gonna get all dusty, and I said no. And they accommodated me for another event. They had a car show in a parking lot of a hotel or something, and
Mm.
that I was able to do. I
Yeah,
went down there with my book, and I sold every single copy. It was great.
yeah. You could have been like a merchant in Fallout, I guess. You know, that kind of look.
Yeah, figure it out. You know, I was gonna walk around with a wheelbarrow, or
Or just be a warlord.
yes, I don't even like dressing up for Halloween.
Not. Me too. I'm not a cosplay guy. I love watching it. I just don't like to do it. I cosplay as a YouTuber. That's the best extent of it. Uh, so, whilst you mentioned some of the other work you've done, and again, there'll be links in the description, but I want to really talk about the post-apocalyptic thing. And because I've always been a fan of that genre. And what was it initially sparked your interest in it? I mean, and how does that evolved over the years? How did you get into it, and what appealed to you about it?
Sure. Well, you know, like a lot of people from the 80s. You know, I grew up in the 80s. I vividly remember the very first time seeing The Road Warrior. That was a very important, influential movie.
Yeah.
Really scared me as a kid. More so than like Freddy Krueger or, you know, Michael Myers. It just felt maybe possible. You know, like I have a
Yeah.
hard time believing that Freddy Krueger is gonna kill me in my dreams, you know. But I could suspend my disbelief a little bit that the world would undergo a nuclear apocalypse and, you know, people turn into savages. That has a ring of truth to it, and I recognized that as a kid. Um, so it made a really strong impression on me. But it wasn't until I was, gosh, in my early 20s when
Mm.
I came across some movies, and they were always there, you know, because I grew up in the video store era, the ripoffs. And I was always aware of them. And I remember movies like No Escape coming out. It's called Absalom in other countries. And other apocalyptic movies that kind of resembled the ones the best, like the Terminator or whatever.
Yeah.
But there were always the emulators and the ripoffs. And but it wasn't until I was in my 20s when I really caught on to that. I was like, hey, there's actually something to these movies. They're not just, I mean, they're junky, but some of them have a lot of merit to them. And
Well, there's a lot of sincerity and heartfelt
something,
effort put into them.
and I remember picking up 2019 After the Fall of New York and Exterminators of the Year 3000 and a movie called Land of Doom. I was with a friend. They were in a like a box at like a bargain bin at a bookstore, like a buck a tape or something.
Yeah.
And I picked all three of those up one night or one afternoon with my buddy, and we went and we watched all three of them back to back. And I was like really inspired. I was like, these movies are kind of special. They're bad. Some of them are really bad. Like Land of Doom is terrible, but there's something special about like I was able to kind of see an entire spectrum with these movies, and it seemed possible to discuss them. And I was already. I mean, I've always been a very well versed guy when it comes to movies. Just A to Z of every genre you can think of. But I really craved at that moment. I craved a book. I wanted to go out and read a book about these movies because it just awakened something in me like primal. I wanted to know more about the end of the world in terms of movies, and I like what else am I missing? What movies have I not discovered? Because I just wanted more, like right then and right there. When I watched these movies with a friend, Land of Doom, Exterminators of the Year 3000, and 2019 After the Fall of New York, I was like, somebody should write a book about this because I want to read one. And my friend had a book called Apocalypse Movies. It was a paperback book by a guy named Kim Newman.
Oh, I know Kim Newman quite well from watching videos and reading his books. Yeah.
Yeah, British guy.
Yeah.
And so I was excited. My buddy let me borrow the book. I read the book within a couple of days, and I was overwhelmingly disappointed. And I've told the story many times, but it's no disrespect to Kim Newman. He wrote a book that was just kind of an overview of the genre.
Superficial.
Yeah, very superficial. He mentioned lots of movies. And I remember when I was writing World Gone Wild, I contacted him and, because I was so disappointed by this book that he just mentioned all these, he would talk a little bit about the big ones, the Planet of the Apes and Panic in the Year Zero and, like the benchmark movies. But then he would mention 5 or 6 others in, his paragraph or whatever. And there were some that he mentioned that I just, that book inspired me to write my own book.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do something that was very respectful and treated all movies equally, while, championing the smaller films and the big films. But I wanted to really discuss movies like After the Fall of New York and Land of Doom, and but I even contacted him at one point when I was writing the book, and I was able to get a hold of him, and I said, you mentioned this movie and I can't find it anywhere. And he's like, oh yeah, I've never even seen it. And to me, that was just a confirmation of, he was just like pulling stuff from, other textbooks,
Yeah.
and just kind of throwing it in there. And I thought that was not what I want to do at all. So it became a deep exploratory mission for me. And I was dredging up movies that had not been seen or screened or mentioned in decades. And I, case in point was I came across this movie called Taking Tiger Mountain,
Yeah.
which was an early Bill Paxton movie. And it was like the very first thing that Bill Paxton ever made. And I couldn't find, there was nothing on the internet. Nobody had seen this movie, nothing. It was like, it didn't even exist. And I found the guy who made it. And I befriended him. And I later on in his life, I became his publicist. But early on, his name was Tom Huckabee. He invited me to Texas. He's like, come to Texas. I have the only uh, existing 35 millimeter print of the movie.
Okay.
And we'll rent out a movie theater and we'll screen it for you. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And there were multiple examples like that where I was going directly to the source. Movies.
Yeah. So how did you? But I mean, there's 1,200, and it's not just movies; it's television shows, and your 1,200 properties. How, I mean, I know you're into lists. How did you determine what should or shouldn't be included? Where did you find this stuff?
What? Okay, so what? That's a good question. So again, I already had an archive of this stuff before I even decided to make it, to embark on it. But I was very fortunate to live in the greater Los Angeles area. And when I started writing this book, there were still mom and pop video shops within a 50-mile radius of me. There were quite a few. And so, I mean, I hoofed it. I literally drove to every single video shop within a, like 50 or 60-mile radius, even beyond that. And I could still find VHS copies of movies, stuff that had never been released to DVD. I'd walk into a shop and there'd be, like a dusty shelf at the bottom in a corner. There was, like 2 or 3 rows of just VHS tapes. And that's how I did this. I literally would go to each and every title, and anything that even looked remotely apocalyptic,
So
I would look at.
So what was that criteria? I mean, there's a lot of overlap between, let's say, post-apocalyptic and dystopian and action and science fiction. What made it particularly post-apocalyptic?
Well, I had to create a boundary, like even with my book about action stars, there has to be a rule. You have to create a boundary.
So what are the rules?
What is an action star? I had to literally define what that is so that guys like Clint Eastwood or Mel Gibson don't get included, but certain people do and don't get included. So I had to create a definition, and it was my definition. So as long as the apocalypse occurs within the time frame of the movie, it's in. Like I watched plenty of movies where it was like, maybe, like they didn't actually say.
What's an example of one you would leave out for those reasons?
And that was like a subgenre list that I eliminated for the second edition because I had a close but no cigar section. Like it was like, oh, maybe. Like Battle Star Galactica. I watched that whole show, and it was like they're fleeing a planet that has been destroyed, and this is the last of humanity.
Not Earth, of course.
It's not Earth, though. Like find out they go to Earth, and I was like,
great stuff, but doesn't fit in this book. No.
Yeah, like it's so close. All I do is just say, oh, they fled Earth. So things like that, and I wasted a lot of time. But I don't consider it a waste of time.
No.
See, I'm a lucky guy. I'm a very fortunate, blessed person that I've never really had a real job. I've never worked a 9 to 5. I've never had a
Mm,
boss. Every dollar I've ever made in my life has been 100% hustle. So I have nothing but time. And, most people can't say that, and it's
yeah.
kind of a challenging life. I mean, we can talk about that, but I mean, I have to watch movies. And luckily, when I was younger, I had more time because I didn't have kids and I wasn't married. And,
Mm,
I didn't have as many responsibilities. So now it's a little bit different. I have to be a lot more selective. But back then, I could watch anything and everything. And
yeah.
I took copious notes on everything I watched. There
Well,
was a
that's a key.
I would
Yeah.
quote it and do all these things. And so, yeah, it's a lot of work.
But this is the stuff that those of us who love movies, love to and TV, love to talk about. We'll enjoy talking about. Is this really that movie kind of movie, or isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's great to see exploration of that in the book, where you, particularly in the introduction, where you do talk about what's in, what's out, and why, uh, and what makes post-apocalyptic movies as a genre important rather than just part of some other genre.
Yes. Well, it's taken me a lot of time and retrospection to understand why I actually did this. And
Mm,
it became, in retrospect, it's actually quite important because this genre is not just fantasy, it's very speculative and it deals with humanity in a specific kind of a way. Some
mm.
movies are very outlandish and, I mean, Waterworld, I mean, that's never going to happen. But
Better movie than some people give it credit for, though. I
I love
enjoyed
Water.
that movie.
I'll
I
defend
love it.
till, I'm gone,
Mm.
but, uh, there's a great deal of these movies um, focus on how humanity deals with, a disaster. There's no coming back from it.
Yeah.
And uh, so, yeah, I mean, it's an
It's
important subject.
speculative, yeah. I mean, much as a lot of science fiction does, and there is crossover many times, is we're talking about possible futures, many
Yeah.
of which are even probable, perhaps. So, and I find that a fascinating subject. I mean, but the themes that you've identified in here, there's recurring themes, and you've subcategorized and subcategorized. You mentioned some movies that were from other markets other than English language markets, like Italian and so on. Are these themes universal across all markets, or do some countries, let's say Italy or Australia, tend to go for one type of apocalypse?
Ooh, that's a good question. You know, I, there's trends. There's
Mm,
trends. The Cold War period, everyone was worried about nuclear catastrophe,
mm,
nuclear holocaust. And then we had a trend where countries were doing, and it's funny how, like, America will do these like uh, killer comet movies or whatever, and like China just kind of catching up to some of this stuff. Like there's
the Wandering Earth, stuff like that. Yeah,
Wandering Earth. Oh my gosh, that movie is just
it's,
horrendous.
it's insanely horrendous.
Oh,
Shame because I love the author, but
whew. And there's certain things. So, and then we went to the zombie trend, and the zombie apocalypse, and it didn't really go into hyperdrive until like after Romero came back with like Land of the
Dawn, Return of the Living Dead, which was the one in the mall. That's the one where I really felt,
Dead. But
yeah,
you know, there was a little blip there in the '80s, with zombies. But man, it kicked up into hyperdrive in the like the early 2000s. All of a sudden, there were all these cheapo, nothing zombie movies from every country in the world. Like you'll see the first movie featuring zombies in Portugal, or
yeah,
or
yeah.
all of a sudden there's zombie movies. And um, so yeah, that's a really good question, but I don't know.
It's more global trends than national trends, I would guess. Yeah.
Global thing. every once in a while you get a really unique movie from some part of the world that's super unusual. Like in the second edition, I reviewed a movie called Crumbs, and
Okay.
it's first what did I say? I think it was Ethiopian or something. And like I've never even heard that language spoken in a movie.
Mm.
And um and and the apocalypse in the movie is very vague. Like, what is it? They never say, but it's clear that humanity's been wiped off the face of the earth, and there's just like two or three people just kind of wandering around.
Well,
Uh,
that's a little bit of a subgenre as well, though. Vague apocalypse. There's a
yeah,
few movies like that. Like,
like
oh,
what happened? I don't know. I other. There's an other in
other. Where
and
did everybody go?
yeah, like what is it? Rapture? I don't know.
Yeah.
They don't say.
Yeah, I love that. But yeah, there's certainly a number of themes and trends. How have you seen that changing? You've touched on that a little bit, but now what are we seeing today as opposed to, like you mentioned, Cold War, nuclear apocalypse? Where are the trends going in your
Hmm.
view?
AI. There's a lot of AI stuff now. Robots. I'm seeing a lot of that now. Viral apocalypse. A virus. That
Mm,
really became a thing there for a while. And it was kind of strange to visit that again during the lockdowns, the COVID lockdowns.
mm,
Because I mean, I don't know where you stand with all that. I mean, I have my strong views, but it was very clear that reality was mirroring and following the Hollywood template, very
yeah.
clearly. You see, if you watch V for Vendetta, I went to see V for Vendetta at a theater that defied the lockdowns during the lockdowns, and it was like, oh my gosh, like watching that movie during COVID was just, if you have eyes to see, you can see.
Well, we could have an entire discussion about that, absolutely, because whilst I'm not necessarily what the CIA would call a conspiracy theorist, I'm a conspiracy appreciator. So I do like to explore all of these issues, but I think that there are a number of movies that have pulled back the curtain on the way things are presented to us by, let's say, the media and the establishment. So it's a fascinating subject. There's lots of movies about it over the years. Not all of them post-apocalyptic, of course.
Right. Well, like They Live, like
Oh,
that's
They
the
Live is one of my favorite. I'm a John Carpenter
yeah.
fanboy.
I mean, that's a perfect example of a movie that came true, but it's so weird that we could go. I don't know who your audience is or what. I don't really care,
Have
but
an audience. I do have a small audience. Yeah.
to me, well, anyway, that's a good example of a movie where it just feels like
Well, the day I mean, I like to talk about these. I'm not a channel that necessarily delves into lots of political stuff, but I do like to talk about them because these are real themes in our entertainment that reflect reality or attempt to or explore realities. And you mentioned V for Vendetta. You could talk about a movie like Wag the Dog. Movies that have said, "Pull the hell, the Wizard of Oz. What's behind the curtain?" So I think that what happened a few years ago was there was a lot of media involvement. So let's put it that way.
yeah, you can say that. Yeah.
Without
Um,
us getting cancelled.
about being canceled. Who cares?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is it, but that's what one of the things I like about science fiction and dystopian movies and post-apocalyptic movies is the exploration of those themes. Where did it come from? How did it happen? How are we going to fix it? Are we going to fix it, or are we screwed? And some of that does verge on the political.
Yeah. Look, I got into this book because it awakened something, and I think I used the word primal. It awakened something very deep, and the inherently masculine part of me, the alpha dog in me.
Mm,
I very much uh think about protecting my family in a you know, in a wartime situation or in a disaster situation. And I
Yeah.
thrived. I tell you, I thrived during the lockdowns. I absolutely loved every second of it. And I I was one of those guys out there, you know, without a mask, no rules. I was just out every day.
Yeah.
I finding places that were defying the order. I was eating out almost every day, and I was bringing home. You know, I remember one day I found a huge thing of toilet paper, and you know, I call them the sacred scrolls. You know, you go out on a quest for the sacred scrolls that used to call. They
The
used to,
sacred scrolls.
you know,
I
and
mean, who knew that the toilet paper would be the most important thing post-apocalypse? They've
I
never
mean,
seen that in a movie before.
parody. It was such a parody of an apocalypse. It was such a joke.
It's no eggs.
You know, I was joking. You know, like I'm gonna go out and find the sacred
The
scrolls.
sacred scrolls.
And I found a huge thing of it, and I remember bringing it home, and you know, my wife or whatever was, um, she was walking with the kids outside, and you know, I pulled in, and I took the big, you know, pack of toilet paper, and I held it above my head, and I was like, yeah, you know, like,
Like you're the warrior of the wasteland.
you know, and I it was just such a freaking joke, and
Yeah,
loved it though. I had such a good time, and I people were so afraid of dying, and
I
I'm like,
know.
you're gonna die,
We're
you
all
know.
gonna die. Yeah, exactly. Is this likely to really kill me?
Come on. And
Well,
oh my,
we I had a similar experience in some ways. In that I lost my job because of the pandemic. I lost my job because of it, but it was for me. It was like a release because I'd been working permanently for over 40 years full time since I was a teenager. So I was like liberated. So I could sit all day and watch movies. I could go out my bike. We could go out walking. I'd go to the gym while it was still
it was a
possible.
beautiful, beautiful season. If you
It was
just
great.
up into the sky. I remember taking my son outside, and I was like, look at the sky. You're not going to see a bluer sky than this
Yeah, it was
ever.
wonderful.
It was so beautiful and
I had a
peaceful.
great year. Yeah,
The earth was literally still. You
yeah.
know, all did a study, and they're like, that the earth isn't vibrating right now because no one's driving and no one's there,
Mm,
still, and the earth was still, and it was just a beautiful, peaceful time to be alive. I was like, it was a beautiful time, man. I loved every second of it.
yeah, I must admit I might be selfish, but I had a pretty good year all in, and I tried to do similar things to what you're saying you did. So it's
Yeah,
I was like I got into some flaming public arguments with people.
it brought out the worst in humanity. It really did.
It did. Yeah.
I'm not the kind of person to, you know, flex my rage, but man, my rage came out
You
in
went
way
all John Milius on us.
the utter stupidity of humanity just was
Yeah.
completely revealed. Anyway, let's move on.
Indeed, that's definitely another. And then there are a number of post-apocalyptic movies where things are nice and quiet and everybody's happy. There's probably a few.
Yeah, there are.
not, not always a bad thing, Hey, this is all right.
Yeah.
So yeah, but to go back to the inclusions or not inclusions in the book, what was the most? I remember reading about a TV show that you managed to find a copy of. What was the most obscure IP or property in the book that you could find?
Okay, so there's some really obscure stuff, like stuff nobody is ever going to find.
Mm.
I will. Okay, so the best story, I guess, is okay. So in the first edition, are you there? Shit. Hello. 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 Hello.
I think we both got thrown out there.
I'm still here.
Hang on, I'll hide and show you again. I can see you, but I can't see you on the screen. why we're tiny. We've gone all tiny. We're bigger there. Oh, I know why. There we go. That's us. I'll switch you back to that side again. We'll confuse people. I'm sorry about this, David. It could be
Okay,
just
okay.
ongoing.
Don't worry about
Anyway,
it. I've got
we're
a
still
little
going.
while. So in the first edition, I came across a title called Alas Babylon, from, I think it was 1960.
That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
And I could not find it. It didn't even exist. Like there was proof that it was aired on TV once or something, original broadcast. But I mean, like, it's never been on video. It's not on YouTube. Nothing. So there were titles like that where I just had to accept that I was never going to find them. But in the 10 years that passed, I never stopped reviewing movies because I always knew there was going to be another edition. And so I somehow came across a mention that Alas Babylon was in the UCLA film archives.
Okay.
And so I'm the kind of person that when there's a crumb, I go completely to the ends of the earth to find it. There's so many stories I can tell you. But this one to me was the most meaningful because Alas Babylon is a very important title. It's based on a very seminal novel written in the 50s during the Cold War. And I really, really wanted to see this movie. Like, I really wanted to see it somehow. And so I called the UCLA Film Archives, or I sent an email or something, and I got a response a few days later saying, yes, we have the movie in our archives, but you would have to come into our office, into our archive, and you have to submit you have to plea for it. You have to do a petition.
Why you
Yeah,
need to see it? Yeah.
you can't just come off the street and so I sent them a copy of my book, and I was like, look, I'm not messing around. This is a real
Research.
this is real research. I'm a film historian. I'm doing a new edition at some point. And anyway, so they approved me right away. And I made an appointment, drove all the way down there, and it was like an adventure. It felt like I was going to Disneyland. And it was a long process. Like, UCLA is a big campus. I didn't know where I was going. Had the park. So anyway, I get in their film archives, and they usher me into this like private room. It's like a little screening room.
Yeah.
And they like take my wallet and or like my phone, and
Can't record. Yeah.
yeah, they search you and all this stuff, and they allow you a pen and a paper, a pencil, whatever. So I go in there, and it's a VHS tape, a beautiful, pristine presentation. And
Was that in color or was it?
no, it's black and white.
Black and white, right?
Yeah, it was made for TV, in the 1960s. So it had the commercials in there from the time, like it was like time travel, and it was like pristine though. It was like looking at a Blu-ray copy. And every second, I was like writing, because I knew I wasn't going to come back, and and I'm the only person on earth who was watching this at that time.
You may be the only person that's ever actually seen it.
I'm sure some other people have watched it, and because I had to ask the question, I'm like, has anybody ever come for this movie? And they're like, yeah, it's been a few people over the years. But yeah, I mean, that to me, that was treasure. It was pure.
It's a hell of an experience. Just to get to watch it is an interesting experience in its own right.
And there's something about certain experiences in your life, that you tell yourself, this is happening, and remember this moment for the rest. And there's certain, like, keystones, touchstones in your life where you know, like your first kiss or whatever, uh, and you just know that you're going to remember that forever. And it was like that for me. Um,
Nice. That's a great experience. Yeah. Now
Thanks.
that's in the book. Alas, Babylon. It's in the book, everybody. If you want to know more about the show, go get the book. Of movie, go get the book. Who was the star, though? Can you remember?
The star of that movie, Dana,
Um,
I
oh, it was
think, or
Dana Andrews. Dana Andrews. Okay. Well,
yeah,
somebody we'd heard of. So.
yeah,
Uh, So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of your favorites. You gave me some suggestions just so we can talk about a few actual movies and TV shows that or I think they're all movies in this instance. One of them was Doomsday, which I'm
yeah,
very pleased to say I have actually seen. I'm a big Rona Mitra fan. She's
yeah,
got to save the world twice.
yeah, yeah. I've interviewed Rona a few times. She's really cool. When I saw Doomsday, it was everything I wanted out of a post-apocalyptic movie. It was kind of like that 2019 after the fall of New York sort of thing.
Yeah,
It combines a lot of different. It's a cross pollination of a lot of different movies. Neil Marshall is kind of a friend of mine, and
that's
I
nice. Yeah.
I love his work as a whole. And anytime I want to do like a chat or an interview with him, he's always available to me, and he knows how much I love Doomsday.
Yeah,
So
he's good. Yeah, this is a good movie. I do love this. It was 2008 British movie. The only thing I have a problem with this movie is that they shouldn't just quarantine Scotland for viruses. It should just be quarantined.
yeah,
And I'm a Scotsman, so I can say that.
okay, yeah,
But yeah, it's the big death. It's got Road Warrior stuff in it. It's got zombie apocalypse. It's got a lot of different elements.
yeah. I actually prefer this, and I've talked to Neil about this. I prefer this movie to Fury Road. I love Fury Road, but I prefer Doomsday. It has more personality. It has more. It's rougher, and I always prefer a rough, like a rough draft kind of a movie to something that's like a
Pretty
razor.
polished. Yeah, polished. Yeah. Great movie. I'd recommend it. It's one of the ones I've seen that you mentioned. Dog Soldiers is a great movie, of course. So I do love that movie too. Uh, so another one you mentioned, which I've also seen, but way back in the day on VHS, never seen it in a cinema. Which, but Battle Truck,
Yeah,
which
I Battle Truck. Warriors of the 21st Century. I think, or
is subtitled Warriors of there's Warlords of the
War.
21st Century.
Yeah,
That's it. Yeah,
Warlord. Really cool movie. It's not a rip off of anything. It's its own thing. But it feels like a brother or a sister to Road Warrior. Shot in New
yeah.
Zealand.
It's 1982 New Zealand movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't call them Aussies, whatever you do.
Okay.
That's a great movie with some great. There's the Warlords of the 21st Century poster. It's got some fantastic hardware in it.
Oh, it's great. It's a great movie, man.
Yeah,
Very underappreciated. Not very many people are aware of it. Yeah, there's the Battle Truck. Yeah,
it's beautiful.
I
Yeah,
spent time with Harley Cokeless, the director, and had a really extensive interview with him, and I remember that.
yeah, it's great. It's got some fantastic images in it. I must watch it again because I have not seen it for a long, long time. But I do remember at the time thinking that was pretty cool. As you say, a lot of people would say, Road Warrior ripoff, but really, I don't think it's really that at all. And it's just fantastically well made. A lot of heart in it.
Yeah, it came out the same year as the Road Warrior.
Yeah, so it's not really it has some similarities, but it's its own thing entirely.
Yeah,
Yeah, lots of images about it. I do like Destructor.
I don't know that one. That's a different title. I've never
I
seen.
think it's in. I think that may be the French
Oh,
or. Oh no, it's Spanish. That's the Spanish release. I love the alternative names and covers of
yeah.
things. That was a one that I had seen, but I had not seen this one. I still haven't seen it, and it's on my list now. The Further Adventures of, and I'm going to say this wrong.
Ensemble.
Ensemble. Yeah.
Okay, so this is not for everybody. This is a movie that it's one of my gem discoveries. I love this movie. I just it's my pleasure to highlight movies such as this, completely off of the Hollywood mainstream radar, totally independent, beautifully designed, made, written. It's extremely original. It's not like any other post-apocalyptic movie ever made. It's made by playwrights and guys who do theater. Um,
Mm.
and I discovered this one completely by accident, just doing my deep dives. All just totally random discovery.
Yeah, and I think I mean I haven't seen it yet. It's on my list, and the list is big now because of this book. It's a tribe of men discovering a tribe of women in this post-apocalyptic landscape. But
Sort
that
of, yeah.
simplifies it a lot, I think, saying that.
Yeah, it's a after kind of an undefined disaster, the world has ended, and like the children are left, and then the children grow up and just sort of try to create a culture of their own. And it's the language is so unique in this movie. I love it. I love it, like, you know Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, the way the children speak, the group of kids, in
Yeah,
that little area, the way they speak is so delightful. But it kind of feels real, like
America 3000 does the same thing. Yeah,
I love that. I love language. And this movie's just, it's really wonderful, but it's not for everybody. Some people who I've recommended the movie to, they're like, that is not for me.
I've read a few negative reviews, but yeah, that's because they felt it was too confusing and static. But that's
Yeah.
personal taste. Yeah,
Yeah, I became the publicist on this movie after I discovered it. I tracked down the guy who made it, and he hired me as his publicist for a long time. So this is a movie I champion. I love this movie.
great. I look forward to seeing it. Another one you mentioned was Bleak
Oh,
Future, which I've
yeah,
never seen either.
this is a fun movie. I was their publicist also. So that's what I do on for income. Is I'm a publicist for filmmakers, and this movie is sort of a Monty Python in the end of the world. It kind of has to it. But again, very unique, very original, uh, very earnestly done. Like, these guys are practically film students when they made the movie, and no rules, just pure joy. It's just joyful, and
It's got what we all need, which is a mute Scotsman in it. The world needs more mute Scotsmen.
I tell you, this movie made me laugh so hard. Um,
Yeah.
that's really rare. My I'm a real hard nut to crack when it comes to comedy, and this
Okay.
movie is really funny.
Good. Well, I look forward to seeing that one as well. It's kind of got a lot of the warriors in the wasteland,
Yeah,
warlords, marauders, natural apocalypse, all these subcategories. It's in.
yeah. His
But
his weapon is the English dictionary. It's like he looks at, it's so great, so original.
yeah, filmed. Was it filmed out in Death Valley or somewhere like
Yeah,
that? 'Cause
are
yeah.
they in the same place, I believe, where they shot Terminator 2, the desert, stuff.
Okay. Well, it certainly looks pretty good. It's got a lot of very well named characters in it. I'll just say that
Oh
much.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. One I have seen, but also again a long time ago, is the 1990 Circuitry Man
yep.
movie with great. It's a great movie. I loved this movie when I saw it.
Yeah. It's very underrated. Again, very original, kind of ahead of the curve when it came to AI and cyberpunk stuff. It's very
Yeah, very ahead of its time with that, with chips, you can narcotic chips and stuff like that. That is now common currency of cyberpunk type things. They stick something in your head for an experience.
yeah, the whole Elon Musk thing. Which
Yeah,
Musk makes me nervous. I'll just come out and say that.
exactly. Some great effects in it too. It's wonderful stuff. Circuitry Man. Uh, oh, there we go. A great actor, of course. Uh, Yeah, some good stuff there. That's an interesting image. But I noticed how they feature Tracy Lords as one of the stars alongside Vernon Wells. Did she have that? Yeah, okay.
That was I
uh,
mentioned it to Tracy Lords when I met her, and
yeah,
she's like, "Oh, yeah, I don't really. That was a long time ago."
yeah. She was trying to carve out a career for herself, and she did. She was in quite a few movies. Yeah,
No, I've always liked her.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
problem with Tracy's
No,
act.
she had some great stuff. Yeah, she did some good stuff. Um, some great movies. Lots of. So this is a more recent one you mentioned, which I actually have got a copy of, but I've never sat down to watch yet.
Oh, oh yeah. So
So
I
what?
this breaks my heart that I couldn't put this in the book. You know, this came out after the book was submitted and everything. So, but yeah, Furiosa's incredible. I prefer it over Fury Road in every
Yeah,
way. It's so sad that it bombed. But it exists and we'll have it forever. Um, I went to see it 5 times in the theater.
yeah.
I absolutely I loved it, man. It's such a great movie.
It's interesting to hear your perspective on it because it did get a lot of flack from some quarters. Yeah,
I I don't understand people, man. I just don't get it. The same people who let John Carter flop
I
and
love John Carter. I love that movie.
people. That's a great movie. Why did nobody go see it? Like
I like
Furiosa.
Taylor Kitsch.
To me, it's in the same category. It's just absolute wonderful filmmaking. It's everything I want out of a movie. It's a little stranger and rougher than Fury Road. See that I always describe
Mm.
Fury Road as being perfect. It's the ultimate uh what do they call the storyboard? It's the ultimate storyboard
Storyboarded.
life.
Yeah.
It's so precise. It's flawless, and I I'm just not into flawless. I guess I've never.
Well, post-apocalyptic worlds are supposed to be rough.
Yeah. Well, dude, I mean, I'm never gonna complain about Fury Road. I'm so happy. I love that movie too. But when I saw Furiosa, I was like, holy crap! Like this movie is just it's everything.
Well, as I say, I do have a copy, so I do have to sit down. I mean, it's finding time. I've got literally
Yeah,
hundreds of things lined up to watch.
I'll rewatch Fury Road or Furiosa over Fury Road any day of the week. I
Yeah.
loved it. It it's not Mad Max, even though it's set in that world,
No, no, it's not. No,
and
it,
Max has a cameo in it, sort of. But it's so cool, man.
well, I will check it out for sure now that you've recommended it.
Yeah,
I'll try and get it up the list a little bit.
yeah, it's great.
Yeah, like you, I mean, I noticed you mentioned on Twitter about the Roundup movies. I'm a huge Korean content guy, so I work my way through like 6 Korean things at any one time.
Oh yeah, that's something we can talk about it in another context. But yeah, there's some Korean apocalyptic movies in the.
Well, one of them was my favorite, so I'm going to mention a couple of mine. But one of the other ones you mentioned, I think the last one that I've got on my list of your some that you wanted to talk about was a 10,000 AD, The Legend of the Black Pearl,
Yeah,
shortened to Black Pearl, which obviously causes confusion on the internet with Johnny
right.
Depp.
Yeah, it's that DVD cover is not accurate because when you watch the movie, it just says Black Pearl.
Yeah,
That's another of these like bleak future, further adventures of Anson Buell kind of movie. There's a very special category or whatever type of movie that is made completely off of Hollywood's radar. No rules, just guys out there making something that's totally radically unique. It's everything that I want when I sit down to watch something with no expectations.
creates its own world. Yeah,
It creates its own world, A to Z, top to bottom. Uh, there's absolutely no rules, and that's a movie that has its own language too, and I love it. It's you're never going to see a movie like it. Look, if you're a guy who, when you watch a movie with these people had no money when they make these movies. If you're thinking you're going to get something with a budget or what, like I put that in quotations because it doesn't even apply.
Yeah.
Like
What budget? Yeah.
these guys are making something completely born out of their souls,
Passion projects. Yeah.
and it's so absolutely astonishing. It absolutely blew me away. And it took them, like years. These kinds of movies take years, not weeks or months. There's no set timetable. These guys are out there making something that, I'm so grateful for movies like this.
Well, I mean, this was made in 2008, and that was probably if I recall rightly, our current era where you can Kickstarter things and ghost fund.
Yeah,
This
before all.
was made, which is made in some ways has made independent filmmaking easier if you can get that people to donate. But these days, getting the money for that would be super hard.
Yes, so oh my gosh, impossible. And these guys never made another movie. I sat down with them years after they made it, and I remember very vividly. We were at some cafe somewhere. I don't even know where the heck we were. And they were just like, "You're the first person who's ever talked to us about this movie," and I was like, I can't believe that, because this movie, it's great. It's astonishing to me. It's better than anything that Hollywood has ever made. To me, it personifies filmmaking in its purest form. And
it's got heart and soul, which
oh,
Hollywood nowadays seems to have
I mean,
none
we've
of.
that completely, and these guys made it. It's like on cheapo digital. Back in the era when stuff was shot on like cheapo digital cameras, so it doesn't look that great. But I mean, wow, to me, it's amazing.
No, I'll certainly be watching that at the first opportunity. I mean, I've got, as I say, I've made a list of about 100 films in the book that I've yet to see. So just a couple of things. Obviously, I immediately went to the book to look up the ones that I love. A Boy and His Dog, which has been one of my favorite movies for a long time.
Yeah,
Did a great live stream on that. Seminole, I think, is
not getting LQ Jones. I had a chance. I met the guy, and I should have done an interview with him. I kind of regret not doing that. Oh well.
Yeah, it's a fantastic movie. We did a great live stream on this channel, and I've always loved it. Especially love the ending. A lot of people didn't, but I love it.
Yeah.
No spoilers, but yeah, great. It's a very tasty ending, and a young Don Johnson. Who couldn't like that? Another one I absolutely love, which we mentioned Korean content. And I know this is one of the better known ones, more popular ones, and there are many others. But Train to Busan, which is firmly in the zombie apocalypse category, happening in real time as we watch the movie. Brilliant movie, absolutely love it. It's everything I love about Korean movies.
Yeah, I remember seeing it in the theater, and I loved everything except the thing about, I don't know what it is. It's a cultural thing where there's this they're overly, it's like Asian cinema in general. I don't know. I could be wrong, but it's over sentimental. Like it's like I don't like sentimentality, at least their take on it, like the girl whistling or whatever it was. I didn't like that. But everything else about the movie, I like it a lot. I remember going to see Peninsula during that was like the end of the lockdowns. I remember there was a theater that was showing it out in Orange County. I drove out to see Peninsula in a theater also.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that too. But this is great. I mean, it was my first exposure to Gong Yu and to the slapper, as I call him, Ma Dong Suk. We call him the slapper in this house because he's slapping people all the time in the roundup. But
oh my gosh, that guy's amazing.
I love him. I love his stuff. Absolutely love it.
He's like Dirty Harry, like he's Charles Bronson, Dirty Harry wrapped into one.
He's a force of nature. Looking forward to his new stuff that's coming out. The new one, which was called 12, but I think they renamed it Demon Hunters. That looks pretty good. Gong Yu, of course. Escape from New York. I mean, it's obviously super famous. Nothing obscure about this. I'm a huge John Carpenter guy, and this is like a template movie for many others. It's got everything.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, I love both of them. To me, they're equally good. I don't understand the hate or whatever for LA.
It's fun. It's a fun movie, LA.
I love it, and I'm glad people are finally coming around to it. It's taken a while, but yeah, I love them both.
Yeah, love them. Big John Carpenter guy. Adrian Barbeau. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
A show that's in your book, which I loved at the time, Survivors, and I'm talking the original one.
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, season 1 even. Season 2 wasn't that great, I didn't think. Season 1 of Survivors, BBC show written by Terry Nation. Loved it at the time. I thought it was extremely good depiction of Britain post-apocalypse.
No, that's good stuff. I held off on watching that. I remember I didn't like the because I think I had a bootleg of it before there was an actual release of it. And I waited a long time. And when I watched it, I was like, "Holy moly, this is great!"
It was, yeah,
fantastic writing, and it was very well presented. I liked the remake show too, but it got canceled early.
Yeah. It was pretty grounded, I thought. I mean, you had, as you see them here, they've got to go back to basics. Horses, it was a struggle.
Yeah,
everything was a struggle in it.
Feudal times, and that's kind of a thing, like we mentioned Doomsday and some of these other ones, even Escape from New York is very feudal. You have like the Duke. I mean, literally the Duke.
That's right. Well, it's warlords, and it's a great show. First season, particularly Survivors, loved it. And then another one more recent, which I absolutely loved, was The Last Ship.
Yeah.
And again, Rona Mitra.
Yeah.
Saving the world.
Yep.
Great show. Obviously has issues because it does, like most Hollywood TV shows, it starts to go a bit too far occasionally. But
goes off the rails a bit, but I mean, the first 3 seasons were really fantastic.
Yeah, first 3 are great.
I did, when that show first started, I got to sit down with everybody, the whole cast, the showrunner, or I can't remember everybody, but I used to do San Diego Comic-Con, so I would get really nice opportunities to do interviews with, I used to be able to sit at a table with these people, and, pretty decent length interviews, and I try to get as much as I could. Like with Rona Mitra, I mentioned Doomsday, or
Underworld.
Yeah, I don't care about Underworld so much, but I mentioned Doomsday, and I remember she sort of got prickly about it, like I don't know. She's not a big fan of Doomsday.
No.
I interviewed her recently, and I brought it up, and she just doesn't want to talk about it that much. So, but that's whenever
thing.
Get to interview big name people, I try to throw in some stuff that maybe people don't ask them about them, or but anyway, I do. Doomsday's amazing. I love it, and she's a sweet lady. I've interviewed her a couple times.
Nice. No, that's good. No, I like her a lot in everything she's been in. Just a few of my favorites. The reason I wanted to bring those up is everybody out there, if you get this book and you look up your favorite post-apocalyptic stuff in here, you're going to see some great stuff. You're going to see reviews, you're going to see images, you're going to see them categorized, which is fascinating. So yeah, a lot of stuff in there for everybody. David, I really appreciate this, mate, and it was so good to talk to you. Thank you for being here. And what's coming up next for you? What are you working on right now?
So I have a novel. My first novel is coming out in June from a publisher called Encyclopocalypse, which is funny. But they're kind of an up and coming publisher. They're kind of cool. They do some really neat things. My novel is called Chance and Gamble, The Mark of the Maharaja. It's the first of several men's adventure type books that I'm working on. And then I have a movie coming out. I co-wrote a movie, an action movie called Hard Redemption, that was shot last year.
Okay.
Lou Ferrigno he's the lead in it.
Nice.
And a guy named Gino Kang, Kang. He's a Korean American martial arts action guy. So that's coming out at some point. I'm assuming here. I don't know when, but I've seen the trailer and I've seen some clips, and it looks really good. Pleasantly surprised. So I was skeptical, but it looks a lot better than I was expecting.
Well, good luck with that, and I hope you'll want to come back and talk to us about that movie more when it gets close to release.
Anytime. All you got to do is ask me.
All right, mate. Yeah,
but yeah, I've got more movie books coming out too, but those are a little ways off. I think my Sword and Sorcery book is more. It's progressed a lot more over the years than some of the other ones, and that is full of interviews and images and stuff. So
great. No, I look forward to all of that. Once again, everybody, World Gone Wild, Restocked and Reloaded, 2nd edition. Links in the description, and also you'll be able to find David's other work. I'll do that YouTube thing now. Thank you everybody for watching this video. Leave a like and a comment, share it out. Tell us what your favorite post-apocalyptic movies are in the comments, and maybe we'll do a live stream on those in our Monday live streams that we do. So thank you again, everybody. David, thanks very much, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully we'll be talking to you again soon. Till then, have a great day. Stay well and keep on rocking.
All right, man. See you later.
Right, cheers.